An anonymous letter. Why you people do that is beyond me. What the hell do you think we're going to do? Go over your house and, stay underneath your window at night and bay or something? Good. But in any event, it's somewhat related. And it's a touchy topic. But I don't want to talk about religion. But yet I want to talk about some things that are religious. Let me read you the letter first of all. I'm going to read this letter in the right proper spirit, I hope. It's short, it's not long. And I'm going to try to answer it, because I think it's a legitimate question. It goes something like this. Dear sir, believe it or not, it's actually a dear sir. He didn't even put the date on it, well, I'm assuming it's a he. Of course, like all the rest, I wonder how you are, but also, I am chicken to even have you talk or write to me. I am afraid the mad dog will eat me alive. I am only human. As everyone else on this land in these days, I am not God. What in the world, here's where it gets interesting, what in the world do you do, sir, when you want to pray and you are feeling a need one way or the other? Because if you are still an agnostic, you don't have any real God or Lord or even an idol of the heavens to bow down to or worship or pray and confide with, do you? You can't tell me you never got any vacuum or empty spot in your heart. In your case, or you would be inhuman, and you are a sort that is especially human-minded, I gathered, as I have listened to your show now since last year, only a short time before we went up north, and part-time this winter, with regards, an unknown friend. Well, there, unknown friend, I'm going to consider that you are indeed an unknown friend and that you have asked a legitimate question and you have a legitimate need for some knowledge of me, of how I think, of how I feel, of how a lot of the way, not just me. No, I do not have someone to bow down to. I do not feel any great need to bow down to anyone. Some people might think that very, very arrogant, unknown friend. I don't. I see all of the things that everybody else sees in the world that are wondrous, that have no answers, how flowers bloom, babies are born, why the sun comes up every morning. I look at the sky and I see all the beautiful clouds and the formations and the rainbows, the stars at night, the moon. I see all of it, all the things that I cannot explain, all of the things that I have utterly no answer for whatsoever. But nor do I have any questions as to why they're there. It doesn't really make one bit of difference to me. They're there, and there's nothing I can do about it. And so I simply accept them. I can stand on the shore just like you do and watch the sun come up and the waves kissing the shore, the shoreline. And I can stand there and marvel at it and say, my goodness, this is just so predictable. Every day at this time it happens in the same direction at the same place, and I can calculate tomorrow the exact, to the second time it will happen again. And I can explain none of it. And I wonder how it is that on that tiny little patch of earth that I'm standing on, the sun is just a precise distance away to give me the that I need to survive. And I can stand there in awe and wonder and feel so small and so insignificant. Like virtually everybody does. The difference is, a lot of people would say, therefore, since I do not understand, there must be a God. Well, I can turn my back and walk away from that sunset and walk to portions of this earth where the sun's a little bit too close, where there isn't enough water, where the land is scorched and nothing grows and people are in misery and want and need and pain. Doesn't mean there isn't a God. And yes, there were many, many times in my life when my life was a vacuum, when I did feel empty, when I had no one to turn to, when I had no friends, when I had no job, when I had no money, when I had no prospects, no future, no nothing. And I did what everybody else did, or what everybody else does who finds themselves in that position. You're not going to like the answer. But I basically sat back and waited for things to get better. Now, some people pass the time while they're waiting by chanting and invoking incantations of saints and gods and wizards. Others sit there and stare out the window and wait. Some people talk to what they're convinced is God. I basically sat there and talked to myself. Again, I passed the time. Some people thought that they had gotten messages from God. I got messages from myself. I talked my own problems out. without trying to talk down, without trying to belittle, without trying to do anything to discredit, all I would say to you is I feel very sorry for you and for everybody else who does not realize the tremendous inner strength that they have. I feel very sorry for you and for everyone else who does not realize they're quite capable, more than capable, of working out their own problems. There are so many things in this life that literally make no sense whatsoever. So many things that happen that there is no explanation for. But again, because there are mysteries, if you will, it doesn't mean that there is a God. It doesn't mean that there isn't. There are just things that you and I don't understand. I mean, after all, we're basically dealing with human beings. These are the things that we don't understand, how people treat us the way they do, how people can do the things to us that they do. These are the things that are usually the great problems in our lives. These are the things that, when husbands run away, or when wives are unfaithful, or when people do you wrong for no apparent reason, when crimes are committed against you, or when injustices are perpetrated upon you. These are the things that drive us all insane. These are the things that usually leave us sitting home, wringing our hands and saying, my God, help, what's going on here? As a general rule of thumb. To my way of thinking, it would be kind of silly to think that a personal God who watches over every moment on this earth put all of these hopelessly inferior critters together who do each other wrong, and then expect us to sit there and pray to him to straighten it all out. In all sincerity, in my 43 years on the face of this earth, I have not known one prayer to be answered. Nor have I known one prayer to be ignored. I just know an awful lot of people who have asked for things, some of whom never got them, some of whom stumbled upon them. If I ask for a favor from a deity, and it supposedly appears, that does not mean the deity has answered my prayer. It does not mean that a miracle has taken place. Usually we ask for things that are perfectly possible. I mean, if I ask for my son who is strayed to come home, that's possible. It's probable. And if I ask for that from a deity and it happens, it does not mean my prayers have been answered. It does not mean a miracle has taken place. If I were to ask for something utterly extraordinary, for example, for a stone to fall up instead of down, and the stone fell up, that would have been a miracle. That would have been something utterly extraordinary, something that only a God could have answered, could have taken care of. People have prayed for their wayward children to come home, or for any number of other things, and those things have happened. Sometimes. No one ever prayed for a stone to fall up and got an answer to that prayer. So while my life is far from perfect, dear unknown friend, and while it has been filled with many a vacuum, and I expect vacuums in the future, life has taught me to be patient, to do the best I can, to expect no more than what is realistic. And I would hope that would answer your questions. I do not suggest that you immediately abandon your way and take up mine, just as I would hope that you wouldn't suggest that I abandon my way and take up yours. I would hope that your way has served you well, and I assure you that my way has served me well. Which leads us to the other thing that I wanted to talk about today. You see, I live in a very strange world, a world that is probably quite different than yours. I have the luxury, I have the time to question and to challenge the ordinary. That is an incredible luxury, and I am not unaware of it. I have the time to sit around and think about things, to look at things that everybody else takes for granted or turns their back on. Such as some of the things that I heard talked about earlier this morning on this radio station, in terms like, in God we trust. There was some talk about the currency. The American Atheist Association, I think that's what they call themselves, or something close to it, are involved in some silly kind of little little game to get the phrase taken off the currency, "In God we trust." Frankly, I should think that the American Atheist Association or Society would be all in favor of having it on there, and that all of the religious people would be doing their damnedest to get it taken off. You see, because what happened is 20, 30 years ago, some well-meaning soul proposed it before a bunch of cowardly politicians who were not about to say, no, I'm against putting "In God we trust" on the money. And we ended up putting a silly little phrase on the back of our dollar bills and on the coins that says, "In God we trust." It means absolutely, positively nothing. Now, it's a nice enough phrase on the surface. But may I ask you one simple question? Just one simple question. What does it mean? God of vengeance, the one who sends earthquakes to punish people, the one who sends plagues and who made AIDS to punish the homosexuals? Is that the God that we live under? For some of us it is. For most of us it isn't. Is it the God who is the God of love and forgiveness and kindness and mercy? The God who would forgive the thief, who would forgive the rapist, who would forgive the murderer simply because they ask for forgiveness? Is that the God that we live under? Well, for some of us it is. For most of us it isn't. Do we live under the God who has a son, or do we live under the God who doesn't have a son? Which God do we live under? I dare say that without a great deal of grief or aggravation on my part, I could get two of you literally striking each other. An argument over whether it's the God with the son or the God without the son that we live under in this nation. Which God do we live under? What does it mean? I mean, if there is a God, could there possibly be a nation on the face of the earth that was not under him? Could there possibly be a nation on the face of the earth that wasn't under God? If there is a God. And for the purposes of this conversation, we will assume the majority of you are right. Every nation is under God. Well, are you hoping to get a little better treatment because you put it on your stationery? In essence? You think he's going to be impressed? Do you suppose there is a nation that is not under God? One nation not under God? Well, it would be kind of silly, wouldn't it? It would be kind of silly to assume that there is a nation, regardless of what their politics, regardless of what their stated position is, that, if there's a God here, it would be silly to think that there's a nation that doesn't have to answer to him. And if God is so big and so powerful, do you really think he's that impressed? Oh, they put one nation under God in their Pledge of Allegiance there, God. Well, Gabriel, be kinder to them. Give them more wheat per acre. Come on. Do you really think he's going to look more favorably on us since we have our children parrot that phrase in school? Which, by the way, when was the last time you pledged allegiance to the flag? Why are we afraid that our kids are disloyal? They're the only ones we keep asking to do it day in and day out in school. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. We don't start off the day here at work. How about you? No, it's our kids. We must be really concerned that these kids are going to go, over to the other side. Pledge, baby, pledge. Come on, say it again. And again. And again. Could you say it? You know all the words? Quick. Right now. In God we trust. What does that mean? One nation under God. What does that mean? In God we trust. Is there anyone else that we could trust in? If indeed there's a God, then there's nobody else you could trust in. And what? In Bob Lassiter we trust? Whoa! In Lionel we trust? Whoa! No, it can only be God. But if we do trust in God, why do we have insurance? Or guns? Or doctors? Or locks? Or whatever? We don't trust in God for any of that stuff. Now, those who are firm believers trust in God for one thing and one thing only, salvation. So what in the hell's that doing on our money? Much of which is used to commit sin. Who wants to be the first Yahoo this afternoon to call up here and tell me that God doesn't mind his name being used on a piece of paper that's used to spread misery? I'd have to think he would be very, very sad about it. Who wants to be the first honest believer to call up and tell me that it was a thoughtless mistake to put the name of God on the currency? A well-meaning mistake, but a mistake and an insult nonetheless. Now, I've read the book once or twice, and I can't remember any suggestion whatsoever that God wanted anything to do with government. Anything at all. I've read the book, and nowhere in there does it say, I mean, even Paul doesn't suggest that before every town council meeting, somebody invoke the name of God. In fact, it's quite the contrary. So it would seem to me that while it was a well-meaning gesture, it was not what he wanted. Wouldn't you agree? Now, I suppose we could argue these points based on law. I suppose we could argue them based on philosophy. I suppose we could even argue them based on theology and get absolutely nowhere because most people do not want to get involved with what I readily admit to being pseudo-intellectualism. But is it possible? Is it humanly possible for you and I to approach these things from a common sense point of view? Is there any possibility whatsoever that you and I can talk about this? Is there any possibility that what I've just said holds a hell of a lot of water? Are these things important to you? Is it important that it says in God we trust on the money? Is it important to you that we have the words one nation under God in a Pledge of Allegiance that you and I don't even bother to say? Are these things important to you? If they are, tell me about them. Not from a theological, not from a logical point of view, but from your gut. And if they aren't important to you, why not? Let me give you the telephone numbers. 990-9352 in Hillsborough. 990-WFLA. In Pinellas, 461-9352. 461-WFLA. However, there's something I would like you to take into consideration. I've laid this out before you. I've given it some fair thought. I have expressed it in as non-threatening a way as I possibly can. But I am on the verge of giving up insofar as trying to bring new blood into this talk show is concerned. I've had utterly little or no help from my colleagues who continue to talk to the same nifty 50 over and over and over again. Now, I admit to getting somewhat bent out of shape when I go to the trouble of laying something out for you. Something for your consideration only to meet stone silence. Oh, what'd he say? Oh, I'm afraid to talk to him. The truth of the matter is I have literally spent months selectively weeding out chronic callers from this program, trying to weed out self-proclaimed stars. Almost all of whom, by the way, almost all of whom are very decent, nice people, good people, some of them even great callers. But people who've just taken over talk radio, what I refer to now as the Nifty 50, because that's about what it is, roughly 50 people. I mean, there's Jerry from Palmacia, Joe from Odessa, Peg, Dan, Danny, Duncan, Jack, the same tired old voices that dominate every other show. Well, I'm beginning to feel, to tell you the truth, like a sucker. I didn't realize that you guys listened to hear these stars, that you loved hearing Laszlo and Rose and Mona over and over and over again with Betsy and Richie and Tom from Lutz. I didn't realize that that's what you were listening to talk radio for. I foolishly thought that people could be challenged to think and to speak out on provocative topics that were relatively close to home. But hey, gang, it's not worth trying to cultivate a broader caller base. And I'm starting to feel like to hell with it. To hell with you until you get off your collective asses and play along. I'll put up with his nifty 50. It's a hell of a lot better than sitting here begging for calls. Or it's a hell of a lot better than sitting here talking to some again, well-meaning people who are just terrified. And I'm literally on the... As a matter of fact, I'll tell you what. There is only one way to keep the chronics off the air, and that's to fill the board with new callers. And there's only one way to keep the new callers off the board, and that's to fill it with chronics. And after begging and pleading and begging and pleading, and then sitting here listening to not sitting here listening to, but sitting here looking at a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen jerks who can't deal with what I'm talking about this afternoon, calling up and hassling Michael, almost all of them, of course, using obscenities, too. I'll tell you what, Chronics, come home, okay? Come on home, Chronics. Not just for today, but forever. I give up. You win, Chronics. I have lost. I admit I cannot do it alone. I need you. Chronic callers, I need you. I know I've spent years driving you away. I know I have insulted you. I know I've left you on hold for hours, waiting till you got the message, and almost all of you have now. I'm begging, Chronic callers, for your forgiveness. I am begging for your forgiveness. I concede to being utterly nothing without you. I will personally apologize to any of you who call in today, personally. I will cave in and welcome you back. I cannot think of anything I'd rather give to the rest of the people in this audience who never take part than the Chronic callers one more time. What the hell other people can get away with it, I can get away with it. You may think that this is a little bit harsh, but if it's got to be the Chronic callers it will be. 3:39 the time, 990-9352 in Hillsborough, 461-9352 in Pinellas.
Check into Motel 6 and get an office. Hi, Tom.
Salt and the grit. Oh. And the best that a lot of you are going to do is, once every blue moon, squirt a hose at it, wash it down probably with something like, Joy or Ivory Snow out of the kitchen cabinet, and then wonder why the poor car just starts to look dull and dingy and isn't worth as much when it comes time to trade it in. Foolish people that you are, when are you going to learn? The Grand Prix Car Wash is the place to take that car. The Grand Prix Car Wash with regular use will ensure, absolutely positively ensure, the surface on your car will stay clean, stay brighter longer, and end up being worth more money when it comes time to trade it in. 3 locations to serve you. The Grand Prix in Seminole at 10471 Park Boulevard. In South Tampa at 3622 Gandy Boulevard. And Gulf to Bay right across from the Clearwater High School. 1880 Gulf to Bay to be precise. To the phones we go. 3 lines available in Hillsborough. I don't have a great deal of hope if you'd really like to know the truth. But I think just the fact that there are 3 lines open kind of points out what I was talking about when I asked you, what do these phrases mean to you? And I'm trying to come at it from as non-threatening an angle as I know how to. Not in terms of any logic or any theology or any psychology, just gut emotions. What do they mean to you? And if you can't tell me what they mean to you, then I suppose you can't tell yourself what they mean to you. And if you don't know what the hell they mean to you, what are they doing there? I'm not trying to be Machiavellian here. Not trying to pretend that the world's coming to an end because they're there. The world isn't coming to an end. But it just is one little indication of how things can change, how things that just don't seem that important are slipped in here or slipped in there. Hi, Carolyn. You're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Hi, Mad Dog.
How you doing?
I haven't talked with you in a long time.
I know that.
I wanted to say to you that I listened to your monologue, and the first time I ever met you face to face, you challenged me. At that time, I identified myself as a Christian, and I was defending portions of the Bible. And you asked me a very profound question. You said, how is it that you can defend a portion of the Bible and not disbelieve the rest of the Bible? I do have the luxury and the time to evaluate and to think about the ordinary, and I've thought about your question for a very long time. I am now an avowed deist as opposed to an avowed Christian. I have evolved into this, Bob Lassiter, on my own. However, your question, the first time I met you, pointed out a kind of hypocrisy in my own life. And I don't know whether you consider that a compliment or something derogatory to your personality. But it happens to be the truth. It was a question which made me think and begin to evaluate my own position. As to In God We Trust, on our money, it meant really no more to me when I call myself a Christian and I was investing this money, I was buying real estate, I was becoming wealthy by the standards of our society than it means to me today. I understood then, and I understand now, that in God we trust was the brainchild of some person who felt that it was necessary, believing that we are a Christian nation, to put those words on our currency.
Well, you know, obviously you're absolutely right. And what it was probably a well-meaning situation back then. Nobody had the gall to stand up and say, well, that's crazy.
Absolutely.
Just like people are trying to shove through legislation saying it's wrong to kill babies. Nobody wants to stand up and say, oh, it's okay to kill babies.
But the first time I spoke with you on this issue, I didn't have the intestinal fortitude, the guts, because I was identifiably a Christian, to say, there's nothing wrong with In God We Trust on this currency, you see. And what I'm trying to say to you is, you asked for truth, and I'm telling you the truth. I knew then, and I know today, that those words under God, which were put into the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag, were put there for the same reasons and by the same type of individuals who do indeed believe that ours is a Christian nation. My idea of God, Bob Lassiter, is probably on a parallel with yours. And it has never made any difference to me, and still does not when I invest our currency and make money. It has nothing to do with the way I see God. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I sure do, nor should it have anything to do with it.
It doesn't. It never has. And I have, as a deist now, I'm a declared deist. I need to believe, and I want to believe, that there is some guiding power, if you will, over the fallacies of man, over the risings to excellency of man. Of course.
It's called common sense.
Of course it's common sense. So I wanted you to know that I haven't called you in a very long time, because when I call your program and I hear screamers, I may turn it off or turn to some other station. However, I still respect your mind. I respect the questions you ask, and I've tried to honestly answer your question.
I thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Be good. 2 lines open now, both of them in Hillsborough, 990-9352-990. WFLA. Clearwater. Clear, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Hi, Bob.
Hi.
I thought she was one of those closet boozing Baptists. Anyway, Bob, you're being anti-Semitic.
Oh, how's that?
Well, it was the Jews who gave the world population this cloud-straddling, fire-belching God. And you're being anti-Semitic when you put this God down.
I don't believe I put him down.
You're complaining about In God We Trust and all that. You're being...
No, wait a second. It wasn't God that put that on the currency. It was man that put that on the currency. So that's not bashing God, is it?
You should never bash God, because
I never do.
The Jews gave us that God, who was originally a Canaanite God, that they stole from the Canaanites.
Did you want to answer the 2 questions I had raised? Or did you just want to bash Carolyn and
I don't
Jews?
put my trust in some fire-belching God.
I didn't. That wasn't one of the questions. So do you just want to bash Jews and Carolyn, or did you have something
I'm calling
particular?
you an anti-Semitic.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you ever so much.
The reason I don't like you...
I agree with your opinion, but we sure are glad that you called, and would hope that you'll call again here at News Radio 970 WFLA, where it's not so much what you have to say that's important, it's the fact that you say it.
The verdict guilty in the Hermanson trial in Sarasota. Final arguments now on the trial of Oliver North in Washington. On a call for more.
I've been listening to your show this afternoon, and I wanted to get off the road and give you a call and tell you that I really commend you for being talking straight from the heart, Bob. It takes a lot of guts to do that and tell people exactly how you feel, and I'd like to commend you for doing that.
Well, it's not so important how I feel. I want to know how you feel.
Well,
and I'm serious.
What I feel is that the In God We Trust on our coins, on our money, is really immaterial whether it's on there or not. I agree with several of the callers before that it was some person that put it on there with good intentions, but it's not what we put on the money that counts, it's what we do with the money.
Well, I don't know. I would think that if indeed there is a God, you'd be a little bit distressed. Wouldn't you? a little bit insulted.
Well, God looks at our heart, I believe.
Well, exactly, and suppose he finds it empty.
Well, he's given us the choice. And our choice is to make the decision to make either the right choice or the wrong choice, depending on how we lean towards which God that we follow.
I think that perhaps he might be able to deal with making the wrong choice. I wonder how he's going to deal with people who made no choice. You're right. There's the right choice and the wrong choice, but there's that third choice that most people seem to go to: no choice. Just let somebody else do it.
I agree, and someday we're all going to have to answer for the right choice, the wrong choice, or no choice.
Possibly. Quite possibly. You never know about that kind of stuff, do you?
No, we don't. But I'm a new Christian, and I can tell you that several years ago that two miracles happened in my life.
Well, I don't have time for testimony.
I appreciate that. I can appreciate
lots of places you can take your personal testimonies to. This isn't one of them. But I thank you much for the call in any event. Let's go off now to Olds Mar. Olds, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Yes, thank you. Let me preface, if I might, before I answer your question, if I might do that.
Go ahead.
I consider myself a Christian. Now, a lot of us, and by the way, I'm a first-time caller, so maybe I'll tie up a line for one of your other type of callers for a while. A lot of us, when we were born into this world, were reared in this situation where this is what we've lived with most of our lives. And then when you bring up these questions, and I like to think of myself kind of a logical individual also, and a logical thinker, there's a lot of things that bother me, okay, on Christianity. There's a lot of things that bother me about Christianity and about the Bible. And I consider myself a fairly well-read person in the Bible. And there's a lot of confusing things in the Bible. There's a lot of things in the Bible that you don't understand. Now, that is hard to understand. Now, why would God do that? I ask myself that question. Why would God make things so hard to understand if this is what he wants us to do? So, but this is between me and my God, however I perceive him.
Well, I appreciate that, but I don't want to get bogged down this afternoon in a discussion of religion. I want to deal with those two phrases. What do they mean? Why are they there?
The two phrases. In God we trust. Why they put it on the money, the lady probably answered that. It was whether he was a Christian, okay, and he wanted this to be a Christian nation. Okay. It means nothing to me whether that's on there. In God we trust.
I think it should. I'm going to take you at your word that you're a fervent believer, and I'm not going to challenge that belief. I'm not going to mock it. I'm going to accept it. But if I were a fervent believer, I think I would probably be somewhat distraught with that rather cavalier, in God we trust, on money?
Well, that's what I'm talking about. I find no purpose of it being there. I find no purpose whatsoever.
Would you ask that it be taken off?
Pardon me?
Would you ask that it be taken off?
It could be taken off. It wouldn't bother me a bit.
Would you ask? But would you ask? Would you write a letter to your senator, to your congressman, saying, get that off of there?
No, I would not. Nor would I write to my congressman and say, put it on there. Because it makes no sense.
Then you're going to fall into that third category of, right choice, wrong choice, and no choice.
No, I think that's wrong. I think I'm making a choice, and my choice is that just because that is written on there, in God we trust, does that affect you in any way?
It's not my name, sir.
Pardon me?
It's not my name.
Well, see, it doesn't affect me either.
Well, if it was my name, I think I'd be a little bit distressed about it. So therefore, I can only assume that the guy whose name it is would be a little bit distressed about it. Thank you ever so much.
When news happens in Lakeland or anywhere in the Bay Area, hear it first on News Radio 970 WFLA.
Really, possibly very briefly, I might say that I don't really care what you think. The only thing that I really care about is that you have arrived at what you think and what you believe in based upon some form of sitting down or standing on your head or however you do it, of sitting around and saying, I think this way because, thinking out what you think, if that makes any sense, and it probably does. There were two little phrases that came up this morning earlier on this radio station, in God we trust and one nation under God. which I suppose most Americans would really get down and dirty in terms of defending. But what do they mean? What do those phrases mean? And what do they mean to you? And when you really sit down and start to take them apart, it seems as though that you can make a pretty damn strong argument that they're actually contrary to what they would appear to be. Now, I said it as some examples. One nation under God. Well, every nation would have to be under God if indeed there is a God, right? So what does that say? Well, Bolivia would be one nation under God. Denmark would be one nation under God. The Soviet Union would be one nation under God. So why bother? Do we think we're going to get some kind of special treatment or something because we put it in the Pledge of Allegiance and maybe a couple of other places on some stationery? Does that? And why do we make our kids pledge allegiance? Are we afraid they're disloyal? We don't ask adults to pledge allegiance. And that phrase, "in God we trust," on the currency. And the currency is used for some of the most awful things, terrible things. And there's no indication that I have that God ever wanted his name on the currency. Well, why is it there? What does it mean? Let me go back to the phones, okay? Off it is now to, let's see here, Pinellas Park. Hi there, Pinellas. You're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Afternoon, Bob.
Afternoon.
I think that when they put "in God we trust" on the currency, that they really didn't know what was going to happen to the currency that's going on right now.
I beg your pardon?
I don't think from what you just said,
you don't think there were bad things being done with money back in the 1960s?
I don't think it's quite as bad then as it is now.
Oh.
I really don't. Not with the influx of drugs that we've had, and I think that it's gone so far out of hand. I don't think that's what they had in mind. I believe that.
Well, back in the 1960s, money was used to buy abortions, money was used to buy drugs, money was used to buy alcohol, money was used to buy prostitutes. It was used to buy all the same things it's used to buy now.
But I think we do more of that now than we did then.
So what? It was still used to a great extent for terrible purposes.
And that's when they first put "in God we trust" on the currency?
Yeah, on the paper money was in the 1960s. In the 1960s. I'm not sure the exact year.
I was just born back then in 1961. I'm not a numismatist. I don't know all about it, but it just doesn't seem to me like it's offensive one way or the other. I'll tell you flat. Everybody says "oh my God" or "thank God" or whatever. It's just a term that's thrown around so easily. I don't think it should really offend or promote any one thing or knock down anything.
Maybe that's all the more reason why it should offend a believer. Because it is just a figure of speech.
I think that's pretty much what it is now because, excuse me, because it's just so many people use it in so many different contexts. And I believe I heard you say one day when you were talking about religion that you posed a question to somebody if your best friend was in a car accident and you heard about it and they weren't killed, you'd say, "thank God." Well, why would you thank God that they weren't killed if they were going to a better place? I think that the whole perception of God and religion has just been so distorted over the years that it's hard for someone like myself to make a real clear-cut, definite decision. And that's why I think that I've made the decision that I have over the past few years is just to not believe and just to believe in myself.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob.
Take care. Clearwater. Hi, Clear. You're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. I don't have as much education as some of your callers, but I'll try to tell you straight from my heart as you've asked us to. I'm not what most people would term a Christian. I do believe in the great Creator, and that's all the background I'm going to give you. I'd like to discuss first, "in God we trust" on the money. In a way, I think perhaps it's always been there in my life, but
well, I doubt it very much. I'm sorry, you sound like you're a little bit older than 14 or 15.
Well, maybe you're right. I'm one of the nifty 50, but I'm not one of the nifty 50 that call.
Okay.
Okay, Bob. I think more or less a lot of people just think it's a logo. And when it comes to the dollar bill, I personally, in my life, worry more about, am I going to be able to stretch this money to pay my power bill and have something left over for food? So I really don't think about it being on the money. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I had not really sat down and thought about it until I was listening to you today.
No, that was my whole point. I don't think most people have.
It just doesn't really matter to me if it's on there or not. And I suppose if it said...
Well, don't you think it would matter to God?
Well, that's what I was going to bring up. I suppose if it said in Creator, since I don't choose to call the one I believe in God or Allah, I do call him Creator, maybe I would get a little bit upset about that, thinking that, he wants us to do the best we can do, and maybe if we took that particular money and used it for the benefit of some other people, maybe he would like that. But then, as you say, it's being used for so many things, I don't think he would like some of the things that it's been used for, and I probably might consider sitting down and writing to my congressman or my senator and asking them to change it.
Well, it amuses me so much that people get so incredibly bent out of shape when the American atheists go before, or attempt to go before they have virtually no chance whatsoever, Congress, and ask that such things be removed from the currency, and people get all bent out of shape without ever stopping to think about, well, gee, should it be there in the first place?
Well, that's a very good point to bring up, because I really had not thought about this. And the other thing that you were asking about is in the Pledge of Allegiance, where it says one nation under God.
Right, what does that mean?
I do remember when they put that in, and I was a little bit younger, and I think I was proud at the time, and I would stand up and I would say it, and I'm still very, very proud of my country. I try to read up and vote and do the things that I feel gives me a voice in it, but I'm not sure that the country really believes that they are under God. Maybe I would like to see one nation with morals and honesty instead of under God.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob.
Be good.
Bye.
Two lines available, both of them in Pinellas County, 461-9352, 461-WFLA. Well, if it isn't Tampa Bay Heartstop's theme song there, Gary McHenry with a WFL, right, Heartstop, with a WFLA airborne traffic report. This one brought to you by TELUS, Florida's largest, most powerful alternative long-distance phone company.
And isn't that just like him to bring you the most powerful traffic reporter?
When you finally get your body out there, they're going to tell you about how it has the new Easy Glide system, how it cuts cleaning time in half, the automatic height adjustment, the brush speed, the 2.5-inch low-profile power head. They'll talk about the bag capacity being increased, the new felt bearing seals. They'll go on and on and on and on. They've got a great spiel. It's incredibly interesting. Very nice folks, too, by the way. But when they finally let you take control, when they finally let you put that sucker in your hands and you turn it on and it starts going, and it starts almost moving itself across the deep, dark green pile rug that they have there, then and only then will you truly and completely understand the power, the beauty, the magic of the Auric XL vacuum cleaner. Unlike anything you have ever had in your hands, I promise you that. You will understand why the Muffin and I nearly came to blows over the Auric XL vacuum cleaner. Nearly. Think I'm going to take on a woman like that? You are crazy. 2 locations where you can test vac, if you will. The Auric XL, 13230 North Dale Mabry in Tampa. Their telephone number 264-1937. 2454 McMullen Booth Road in Clearwater, 726-0523. Hi, Tampa. You're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I was forced to consider the topic that you've raised today in high school because the speech teacher gave us an assignment.
What a good high school you went to.
Yes, I was lucky. It was in the Midwest. But his assignment to us was to take a commonly held belief or custom in our society and do a speech on it, questioning its origin. And I chose the Pledge of Allegiance. And after doing the assignment, what I really questioned wasn't the God, the phrase referring to God, because I was brought up not believing that there was a God. But I really questioned the phrase in the Pledge of Allegiance that referred to liberty and justice for all. And after doing the assignment, I made the decision that I thought it was a hypocritical pledge because our society didn't provide liberty and justice for all, and in many cases didn't even make the effort.
I'm not so sure that it's hypocritical because I think we make an effort. I quite agree with you. It's not a good enough effort, but I think we make an effort to provide liberty and justice for all, at least in the hearts of most men and women in this country.
Well, the problem I felt, even at that age, which was a sophomore in high school, was that we were being taught that lip service was all that you needed to pay to those kinds of beliefs. and that was standing up in a classroom and being forced to state that pledge, and that was acceptable. Then you could leave school just as many people leave church on Sunday and do exactly the opposite. And so what was so ironic about all of this is that the following Monday I refused to say the pledge in homeroom, and consequently I was sent to the principal's office. When I told him my explanation of why I wouldn't say it, I was suspended from high school for 3 days, a Friday, a Monday, and a Tuesday, for being a discipline problem, and was told that I would not be able to stay in homeroom. I had to sit out in the hall for the remainder of the year every morning during homeroom because I refused to say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I think probably one of the most moving photographs I have ever seen as a man. An immigrant type of individual, obviously a laborer in need of a shave for a day or two at least. Clothes certainly looked like they had been put through several shifts of hard work. And he was standing there with his hat in his hand over his heart in front of a flag, and he was clearly saying the Pledge of Allegiance. The photograph was taken sometime back in the 1940s. I can't think of anything more moving than an American citizen who is moved to say the Pledge of Allegiance on his own, or her own, as the case may be. I can't think of anything more beautiful, anything that really sums up what this country is all about. But I'm not so sure about when 500 people gather together and somebody says, all right, we will now say the Pledge of Allegiance. That doesn't move me very much.
That's exactly right. And as an adult now, I feel very proud. I get goosebumps sometimes when I stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance at a sporting event or at a meeting of a group or something, because I now hold many of those beliefs as practice in my life, and I'm proud to say them.
But I still wonder what that phrase means, one nation under God. Aren't all nations under God, if indeed there is a God?
I can't answer that honestly because I don't believe there is a God.
Well, but if there is, then all nations would have to be under God.
Absolutely.
And I just don't quite understand why we single ourselves out and bend over to pat ourselves on the back saying, hey, God, would you notice us because we have this in our Pledge of Allegiance more than somebody else, please, God?
Well, I think we say that because we're thanking God for always being on our side when we were at war.
Interesting. I thank you very much.
Thank you.
990-9352 in Hillsborough is the number, 461-9352 in Pinellas. There is a line available in each county. I'm not really positive that I'm getting the answers that I had looked for. I'm not really positive that I'm getting people who are what you would refer to as firm believers to come forward and tell me what those phrases mean to them. But then I guess that really sums up the whole thing, because they don't really mean anything specifically. They're just kind of nice little phrases, things that, oh, well, they're there, they've been there, so we might as well leave them. Seems to me if you're talking about something as important as God, if it's something as serious as God, then you shouldn't trivialize it in any shape, manner, or form. Do you have the guts? Do you have the guts to take God seriously? Don Richards standing by the WFLA News Desk. Don?
Late word from 970 W.
It's a little tight this afternoon.
Well, it's been about 45 minutes that I've been on hold here.
I can understand how when you think something over and over and over, through and through and through, it gets to the point of being nonsensical. It happens to me all the time.
Okay.
Unbelievable drop-off just across the board.
Okay. If I did that to you, I'll call back, okay?
Well, no, I don't think you did it, but it is something that just literally happened.
Listen, do you think that people believe that God is perfect? If they thought he was perfect, then he would definitely take care of everything that he created. Do you follow that?
Well, I don't want to get into a discussion about God this afternoon.
Okay.
I've done that more than enough. I just want to know what those phrases mean to you. And obviously you're telling me they don't mean anything to you.
They mean to me that I trust God for taking care of my needs. And that dollar is not mine. It's just something that has been given to me to take care of one of my needs. I'm glad it's on the dollar bill.
Even when it's used to clearly do things that would have to make God unhappy.
What do I do with it that makes God unhappy?
Not necessarily what you do with it, but what's done with it, sir.
Oh, well, I was just saying what I do with it. I'm glad it's there because it reminds me that God has taken care of me once again. Here I have money to get things that I need.
Do you have a lock on your door?
Yes.
Do you ever call a physician?
Yes.
Do you have insurance?
Yes.
Then what do you trust God for, sir?
Very few things, but
Like
I would like to trust
like
him
maybe
more.
your salvation?
No, we're all saved, in my belief. There is nothing that I have to do to make God like me.
Okay, well, whatever, sir. Whatever turns you on, it's okay with me. Unbelievable phone situation. Gary, I guess they knew, that you were coming along. All the calls but one dropped off, but nonetheless.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't think it had anything to do with you, really.
No, I'm sure it doesn't. Didn't.
Or your bronze traffic report.
No, I'm sure it didn't. Just because the traffic reports may seem to run on and on and on and on.
Like it ought to be twinkling. You know what I mean? 990-9352 in Hillsborough, 461-9352 in Pinellas. Now, I know that I asked, incredibly easy questions. And I know that there really aren't any answers to those incredibly easy questions, but that's what I would have hoped. Maybe you're all doing this at home, and I should be pleased, but I would have hoped that some of you would have had the courage to step forward and say, well, damn, I hadn't really quite thought of it that way. Lassiter, you're right. That's what I would have hoped for, but, sometimes I guess I hope for too much from this audience, huh? St. Petersburg Beach, hi, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Robert, this is Tom in St. Pete's Beach. You're right, so I had to give you that. You're doing what evangelists have a mandate to do, and that is to arrive at the truth of the Bible through questioning and using what understanding you have without fear. But most people don't take the time, the effort, or the energy necessary. And what you do is you formulate...
Well, I don't remember asking anybody to call up and psychoanalyze me. I don't remember anybody calling up, suggesting anybody to call up and try to tell me what it is I'm doing on the show. I asked two simple questions. Do these things mean anything to you?
Your question is like, do you still beat your wife? I mean, you just admitted that there really is no answer. I mean, it's foolishness. In God we trust means nothing. One nation under God doesn't.
Then why do we say it?
Well, we say a lot of things. All you have to do is listen to Ollie North or Ronald Reagan, and why do they say the things they do?
Do you believe in God?
Do I believe in God?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. You'd have to give me a description of what you mean by God.
You see, that seems to be all we're getting this afternoon, are deists and agnostics and atheists, when supposedly 95%, 96% of the people believe in God. Where the hell are these people today? This is a legitimate question, damn it.
Well, if it's all I can say in relation to God is when you use the term God to begin with, you're going far beyond my understanding. I can't have any comprehension of what God is. Consequently, people take advantage of that and formulate ideas of God, and we have dogmas. And we have people who don't want to take the time and effort and use the intellect they have to arrive at conclusions, tentative conclusions. They simply would rather have it laid out for them. And once it's laid out for you, you don't have to give it any more thought, any consideration whatsoever. You just go to church, and when they pass the plate, you put your money in, and when there's starvation in Ethiopia, we put a few dollars in the plate, and we go away pacified.
Thank you, Beach. Be good. Scott, you're on the air at 970 WFLA. Scott in Largo, one of the Chronics. Hi there, Scott.
Scott in Clearwater.
Oh, whatever.
It depends on who put that on there, who's responsible for putting "In God We Trust."
Well, we all know that. That would have been Congress, and then, of course, the president signed it.
Did a Freemason put it on there, or did a Mormon put it on there, or did a Christian put it on there? If a Christian put it on there, it's a statement of faith, that we trust in God and not in filthy lucre. But God knows that we need money to live in the world.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, He'll even supply the money for you.
Well, what about if it had been a Freemason? What would be the problem there?
Well, like on the back of the dollar bill, that's a Freemason symbol, the all-seeing eye of deity. A Mason is responsible for putting that on the money, so maybe a Freemason is responsible for putting "In God We Trust." But see, the God of Freemasonry is not the God of the Bible. So it depends on who is responsible for putting "In God We Trust" on.
Well, you see, Scott, I guess you really kind of summed up that second half of the thing when I was talking about one nation under God. Whose God? Are we talking about Scott's God or or Rabbi Bresky's God, or, whose God? I guess we just don't know, huh?
We know.
Yeah, we sure do, Scott. Don Richards standing by at the WFLA News Desk. Don?
The verdict guilty in the Sarasota murder.
As being the only nation under God.
The implication.
Well, what it implies to me, or the way I infer that, is, if you remember early, the sovereignty of the states was very important to our founding fathers. And what the pledge is saying is that all of these United States are one nation,
well, first of all,
under God.
Well, first of all, it wasn't added by our founding fathers. It was added in the 1960s.
Yes, sir. Well,
Or 50s.
I agree with that, or I don't doubt that. But I still, whenever I say the Pledge of Allegiance, that's what I, in my heart, am saying. That these United States are indeed one nation,
okay, which God?
We are under God.
Okay, which God? Is that the God that has the sun or the God that doesn't have the sun?
Well, I think that's up to maybe each individual person.
Whoa, wait a second. What do you mean? It can only be one God. So which God is it?
It's the great Creator.
I mean, in other words, it's your God.
Yes. When I say the pledge, it's my God. And as far as the In God We Trust on the coinage and on our currency, personally, I myself, I'm real proud it's on there.
You're real proud it's on there when it's used to buy cocaine this afternoon?
Well,
College Hill?
I'm sure Mr. Iacocca's not. I'm sure he's proud of his name on the proud of the Chrysler name on the automobile when it's used when someone's drunk and driving.
Well, now wait a second. Are you trying to tell me that Lee Iacocca and God are on the same plane?
No.
Well, that's good. Well, that's good. Then you're not. You don't think God's in the least bit bummed out when, for no reason under the sun, he's never given us any indication that he would like his name on the currency it's used for illicit purposes. You don't think he's bummed out about that?
Well, no, I don't.
Oh.
I think that
sin doesn't bother God.
No, I didn't say that. I think that God was real proud when his name was put on the currency.
God was proud when his name was put on the currency?
Yes.
You think God sits around up in heaven with nothing better to be proud of than, oh boy, look at that. Jesus, come over here. Look, they're putting their name on the currency down there in the United States. You think that made God proud?
Sure. Because he knew that it was put in with the goodness of heart of the man that put it on the currency. I just don't think that...
I think God's proud when people say stupid things like, hey, there are 23 people killed out of 500. Oh, thank God it was only 23. Do you think that makes God proud, too?
Well, it's just like using God's name in vain. I have
Isn't putting God's name on currency that's used for all kinds of terrible things, isn't that like using God's name in vain, too?
Well, I was just about to say, I think that like using God's name in vain, if it's not coming from the heart, if it's just a matter of reflex that you're saying that because you just got your toe smashed, and you're not blaming, actually in your heart, blaming God for you getting your toe smashed, I don't think that God takes
you're
that.
thanking God for your toe only getting smashed.
Well, maybe you could look at it that way.
Gee.
But, and it's the same with the currency. I don't think that the guy that spends the currency in a sinful, if you will, manner is saying, well, I'm going to show God his name's on here, and I'm going to spend this money on drugs. I mean, I think we have to look at the meaning or what was in the person's heart that put God's name on the currency.
Hmm.
But also, I have to, I'm a Christian, but I respect those people who aren't Christians, and I can see where they might possibly be bummed out, or let's say not who aren't Christians, but who are believe in some other God or some other being.
I don't see why somebody who wasn't a believer would be in the least bit concerned that it's printed on the money in God we trust. And
well, if it was a Buddhist, he might be bummed out that Buddha's not on there.
I doubt it very much. What difference does it make?
Well, okay, he might take offense to the fact that some other God's on there. Maybe he would rather just no God be on there.
So then, in other words, it isn't one nation under God.
It's one nation.
No, obviously.
The under God is the part.
I beg your pardon. It couldn't possibly be one nation if we have all these different factions that are so bummed out because, Buddha's not on there or so-and-so's not on there.
No. The one nation just refers to all of these United States are one nation.
What is another word for nation? Would you buy family?
Well, I know you're leading me somewhere, so I'm scared to step into it. But, yeah, that sounds pretty good.
You're right. I'm leading you into the truth. If your family can't quite agree on who the father is, And I guess we don't have one family, do we?
Oh, no. I won't agree with that. I think
Of course,
a family
I know you won't
can be.
agree with it, but it
I
doesn't
think a
change the
family
fact
goes
that it's
beyond the
true.
biological parameters.
Oh, well, that's convenient. Thank you very much for the first-time call. I hope there's a second.
All righty. I sure will.
There is always WTKN, you know. They don't give you grief like I do. 11 minutes after the hour, 5 o'clock. Welcome back, Fun Seekers. Third and final hour for this April the 18th, 1989, Tuesday edition of the Bob Lassiter Show. Michael and I were just talking during the newscast about a brilliant idea. Something perhaps whose time has come. So many new people in the last couple of years listening to talk radio. So few of the classic older listeners, and not necessarily in terms of age, but frequently in terms of age as well. And Michael and I are very seriously considering conducting an on-air course on how to call a talk radio show. What constitutes a good call? What constitutes a bad call? For example, Tampa, hi, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Bob?
Yes, sir.
Go back to Russia.
I'm from Philadelphia, sir, not Russia.
Go back to Russia. I'll pay.
Sir, could you bring the money in this afternoon?
Yes. Go back to Russia. Go back to Russia. Call me.
That is a good call. That would constitute a great call, actually, as a matter of fact. But something along the lines of hi, Clearwater, you're on the air at 970 WFLA. That is a bad call. Can you tell the difference between a good call and a bad call? Let me give you another example. Tampa, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Hello, Bob?
Yes, go ahead, Tampa.
I'm 87 years old. I have 14 grandchildren. I hope you go to hell. Right now.
That is a good call. Let me give you another example of a bad call. Tampa, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Hello, Bob?
Yes. Sound of toilet flushing. That is a bad call. It is not original. It is not humorous. It is a bad call. Perhaps Michael and I will do an entire program on what is a good call and what is a bad call. But nonetheless, the 445 Blues continue until about 5:20. I'll give you the telephone numbers, 990-9352 in Hillsborough, 461-9352 in Pinellas. In case you were wondering, and I can well understand, even if you've been with us from the very first moment of this program, why you were wondering. Simply, we were talking about meaningless little phrases and gestures, little things like "in God we trust." You know, the atheists are trying to get "in God we trust" taken off the money and all, but people are so bent out of shape about it. But I'd wonder what that phrase means to the people who are so bent out of shape about it. Same situation with, one nation under God. I guess the filthy, vile atheists are working on that one, too. What does that mean? 990-9352 in Hillsborough, 461-9352 in Pinellas. Tampa, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Bob?
Yeah.
It's my first time to call.
Great.
I'd want to comment on your "In God We Trust." The Bible says there's one God, one mediator between God and man, the man, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but I know but only a handful of people relative in the world bother reading the Bible.
I know that. If they did, they would be less confused, I believe. In God
in other words, if other people accepted your religion, they would be less confused. Do you realize sir, that they have, in essence, the same feeling about you, that if you would accept their religion, you'd be far better off?
Right. If the Bible's correct, and I believe it is, then there's still one God, one mediator. In God We Trust, I think this tells our folks using the money that this nation is trusting in God.
Trusting in God for what, sir?
I was there when they put it on.
Trusting in God for what?
It just means one nation under God.
No, sir, we'll get to that later on. Trusting in God for what?
Well, he brought us through the Second World War. He brought us through the First World War.
I beg your pardon, sir. There were millions and millions and millions of people that he didn't bring through the Second World War.
That's right. I was there with the
Sir, I didn't ask about your war record. This is turning into a great call. Bringing up your war record is usually very, very good. Take notes on this one, please. Sir, your war record is irrelevant. In trusting in God for what?
In God We Trust just tells whose side we're on.
Sir, what are you trusting for? Do you have locks on your door?
Do I have locks on my door?
Yes, sir.
Sure.
Do you have an insurance policy, sir?
I certainly do.
Do you have a gun?
Yes, I do.
Sir, what are you trusting God for?
I'm trusting him for my salvation.
I mean, obviously you don't trust him. For your salvation?
That's right, Bob.
So putting the words "in God we trust for our salvation," in essence, on the currency where it is used to buy drugs and prostitutes and to bribe people. Sir, isn't that really insulting God? I mean, if, for example, sir, we put your name, if we put we'll just say your name is Bill. In Bill we trust on a piece of paper, and then we use that piece of paper for awful things. Awful things. Wouldn't you be insulted, sir?
Our nation, that just tells
Sir,
us
wouldn't you be insulted,
No,
sir?
I would not.
You wouldn't be insulted.
Are you insulted to drive the car you have?
Sir, it's fine. With the car that I have?
Yes.
What the hell has that got to do with
Same kind of car you have is used drugs, prostitutes, drug runners.
Sir, I don't pretend to be God.
Okay. Well, God didn't put it on. Man did.
Oh.
I was there when they put it on. The men, that was our indication to the nations around the world. This is a nation under God. A Bible God, which is one mediator.
A Bible God. Which Bible God is that, sir?
King James Bible.
Well, wait a second, sir. The King James. Oh, so people who read the American Standard, for example, wouldn't be part of that.
Oh, they could, sure.
Or the people who read the Torah.
The founding fathers read the King James.
No, sir, they didn't.
Yes, they did.
Sir, I beg your pardon. There were an awful lot of founding fathers that put utterly no faith whatsoever in that book.
There's an awful lot that did. That's why our nation was blessed. You try to tell a Cambodian.
Sir, blessed.
That's right.
Where's the nation blessed, sir?
Well,
the nation was blessed with slaves.
The lady from Midwest
The nation was blessed with slaves.
That's people. That's not God doing that. They're freed, aren't they? In this country, they're free.
Sir, wait a second. Well, then what did God bless?
He blessed the principles of the nation.
The principles of the nation. The principles of the nation, sir, were the black men were worth less.
That's a small
than white
minority.
Men. The principles of the nation.
And it was corrected.
It was a small minority.
It was corrected by a man who also believed in God.
Sir, do you mean it was okay because it was a small minority?
It was corrected by a man
Sir, do you
who
mean
also...
it was okay because it was a small minority?
I'm not putting my okay on it. I'm just saying a man that believes in God.
But God put his okay on it. That's what you're telling me, sir. You're telling me, sir, that God put his okay on it.
No, Abraham Lincoln
Sir, you
believed
told
in
me
God.
that God put his okay on it.
I did not say that. You're saying that.
No, sir, that's what you said when you said he blessed the principles of this nation.
Because
that was
founded
part
upon
of
freedom.
Sir, that was part of the freedom. The freedom for who, sir?
Liberty and justice for all.
But it wasn't, sir. It was liberty and justice for white property owners. White male property owners.
That was our decision. That wasn't God's decision.
But, sir, you said that God blessed that.
Some of those people in our
country... But, sir, you said that God blessed that.
I didn't say that.
Yes, sure. Sir, you did. I'll play back the damn tape if you want.
Great. Play it back. God blessed the principles of our nation.
Sir, again, you just said it. And the principles of our nation were.
And Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves under the
sir,
principles of God.
That was 100 years later.
That's right.
Oh, it took God 100... Jeez, God really worked slow.
There's drug runners in our country, too, but because there are some Bible believers, God's still blessing our nation.
Oh, in what way, sir? God is blessing our nation
Yes, sir, he surely is. I've been in Korea, Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, and South Africa.
He's blessing our nation when a third of the nation lives almost in poverty?
That's by their choice.
By their choice?
This happens to be the only nation in the world where you can be a millionaire if you want to.
So all of those little children living in poverty in Appalachia and in College Park and in Newark, New Jersey, and in the south side of Chicago, all those innocent little children are living in poverty by their choice.
That's by their parents' choice. Many living in immorality, adultery, and fornication, they can't expect to
Well, sir, many of them aren't living in immorality and adultery and fornication, sir. And there are an awful lot of very wealthy people who live in immorality and adultery and fornication. So I guess one really has nothing whatsoever to do with the other. And I guess, sir, that there really isn't a God blessing this nation either, huh?
I believe there is. We're still free.
No, sir, you just want to hope there is, but there's no indication whatsoever.
Ask the folks that have come here for refuge, the Hindu, the Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos.
Sir, you're talking about those people that don't believe in your God.
They've come here for refuge.
You're talking about the people that don't believe in your God. The people that have a different God, sir? I guess they should get the hell out of here right now because they don't believe in your God.
Of course not. They have a chance now to believe in a God.
Oh, so now but what happens if they don't want to take your God?
That's their choice.
There's
a heaven and a hell prepared for those.
And so therefore, they'll not be part of the nation.
Sure, they're part of the nation.
And of course, they'll have to go to hell if they don't accept your God. Get off my phone. Don't ever call me again, sir. That, by the way, was a great call. Speaking of great...
Fibber.
What do you mean, fibber? What are you talking about?
I just love it when you get testy. Oh, boy.
Would you like to come over to my house after work tonight, Gary? Maybe I can get testy with you, you know what I mean?
You better be nice to me or I'll tell the Uncle Bob story.
970 WFLA's dangerous traffic reporter, none other than... LeBron Adonis. The heartthrob of Tampa Bay, Gary McHenry.
Thank you, Bob. Traffic northbound on 275, real heavy up.
Bob Lassiter. Bob, it's you and I. The batteries are dying, but it's you and I.
Where they vacuum the car, do the windows, wipe it down inside and out, run through the car wash.
That speaker that works.
But they also
That's
have a no-nonsense
the
approach
crackling
with
one.
wax. Turtle wax, to tell you the truth, sealer.
You're in the
polish,
acid, by the way, Bob.
coat,
I wonder how you sound.
as well as the
Put on my
undercarriage
headphones
wash
to
and
see.
sealant.
Oh, you sound pretty good.
And this is the incredible part.
This is
The armor all,
I
inside
don't
and
have air
out, including the
conditioning yet.
tires.
The leaves are
Never
stuck
again when I
in
washed
here.
my car, I couldn't
So
begin to do
windows
such a
have
good
to stay
job.
open. Just
The
ate a
Grand Prix
bologna
car wash,
sandwich,
3
and I'm
locations to serve you, turning
thirsty.
you through a
Are you
non-car
going to
wash.
vibrate, Bob?
Away from that
That
magic
ashtray,
wash
let me put the
was
headphones
1880
on.
Gulf to Bay in Clearwater, in South Tampa 3622 Gandy Boulevard, and in Seminole 1047
You're all right
Park
in there.
Boulevard, the Grand Prix
Kind of like hidden,
car
though.
wash. Clearwater
Be
High
cleaner
Clear
if I can find a better
970
spot.
WFLA. Hello,
Batteries
Claire.
are probably going to die anyway.
Clearly
Now,
clear.
where the
It
hell
is you.
take Central?
Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Forever, forever, forever.
By the way, is an example of not a good phone call. Again, 5 calls
I
just
gotta
all
check
dropped off the board.
something
Hey,
here.
people, I don't blame you. I don't, you know,
I
I
don't blame
really don't
myself
blame you.
for
But what I don't
Something
understand
here for just a second. Bob, bear with me.
in your little hearts, you would be able to deal with issues like this, with questions
Check
like this.
these
I appreciate it. I told you.
I know the battery light is out.
But I have the luxury of
It's going
sitting around thinking about this kind of nonsense. And it is nonsense, except when it gets to a point, and it occasionally does in a nation, when everything that we stand for, when everything that we supposedly believe in
Okay,
is
we're in St. Pete. Let's head back, Bob, to Tampa. Hello, Tampa. I'm not here. That's my name. Not
be
in
it the
quick
country, be it some
$5.
kind of
I'll owe
other
him
deity,
tomorrow.
be it some type of whatever. I wouldn't ever want to become a cliche, but it's
You
going
are
to
a
become a cliche.
cliche.
Now let's just sit down and you think about
I'm
it.
going to have
Clearwater High, you're on the air.
kind of crushed ice.
Bob.
Bob.
Hey, I want to talk
Wait a minute. Am I going the right way?
Okay.
And coming from a Christian point of view, I am a Christian. I want to explain
I don't think so.
God does
I think you
everything.
got to go the other way.
And the proof of that is when he's Christian.
You do, Bob.
That's when he was being tempted in the wilderness.
You're fucking heading towards the beach.
All the governments that are in there.
That ain't
I'm not
the
having a
right
discussion
way
of religion.
to go.
All right. Well, I just thought...
Well, what does the phrase mean to you? Does it mean anything to you at all?
No, I don't think it should be on the money. I think originally, it should be
Got a
on
good
the
look.
trust, because that's what everybody
Right,
thinks.
Mr.
Well, actually,
Continental.
no, it's basically...
Gray beard, the Burke beard.
All the way.
Something's banging in the back.
It's basically pieces of paper we trusted. They took the gold away. That's another show.
Bob, the battery's dying on me. I need a recharger, Bob.
Well, I thank you very much, Clear.
Thank you very much.
990-9352 in Hillsborough, 461-9352 in Pinellas. Does it begin to dawn on you that a lot of what you're believing is a bunch of cliches? Largo, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Yeah, Bob Lassiter?
Yeah.
Okay, are we still discussing In God We Trust to put on the coins?
I could have sworn that's what it said. Yeah.
I'm going to do that, okay. Maybe they stuck with keeping it on because that's the way it's been through the Pledge of Allegiance.
Hardly see the LED on the
Pledge was
battery.
the one they originated.
Sir.
We have to stick with it because of our Pledge of Allegiance.
Well, first of all, it's not on the Pledge of Allegiance, and secondly, neither the phrase "In God We Trust" nor the Pledge of Allegiance were around when the country started.
All right. Okay, that sounds good.
I don't believe so.
Sounds good.
It does.
Okay.
Hey, I just wanted to say I'm an avid listener of you.
Great.
And even though you do blow your temper, you're a unique, different guy from all the rest. And I hope you stay the same.
Thank you much.
Okay, take care.
Thank you very much, Bob.
All right, that was a bad call. That was an example of a very
How
bad
about a
call,
bad
as a matter
right
of fact.
speaker? Now, where am I getting some ice in
continue
my
to point out to you, and one day we will conduct a seminar on good calls and bad calls. Tappa, you're on the air at 970.
Hello.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, Bob.
Great.
Joe from St. Pete here.
And I just had to call in. This is
Second day of work. Crawling in the attic.
I think so. I don't understand.
I think that 7-Eleven might.
Did you hear the beginning of the show?
Yes, I did.
Well, I explained in great detail.
Why is it necessary to pick on a phrase on the back of a dollar?
Well, Well, sir, do you believe in God?
Sir?
Do I believe in God?
Sir?
My God? Yes.
Well, sir, it would seem to me that you should be a little bit distraught if your God was being insulted. If you really believed in him. Maybe you don't...
Sir.
...learned about God being insulted.
Okay.
Check the watch.
I'll buy that.
McHenry's coming up.
You're very easily
Tuesday's
convinced.
coming up soon.
I see.
That was
Whatever.
a bad
990-9352 in Hillsborough,
I'm gonna get a good drink on the
461-9352
break now.
in Pinellas. Standing by at the WFLA news desk,
7-Eleven is.
Don
They're
Richardson.
I look forward to seeing what snide remarks you're going to make.
Henry,
how you're going to introduce me.
yeah.
Remember the sponsor.
You really do enjoy the side sponsor.
Put a slurpee on your head, McHenry.
You don't need sponsor for this traffic. What are you trying to do?
There's no room left on the show for sponsors for traffic. They're all full of Bob sponsors. We couldn't fit another commercial in the hour because Bobby has them all.
Don't you forget it, McHenry.
Don't.
Do the traffic.
You haven't been properly introduced yet.
Come on, you cretins.
Let's go. Get another one into the traffic.
Traffic on the Howard Franklin Bridge. Eastbound, westbound, up to your bad. Westbound side slowing down as you approach the bridge.
All right.
Right about the...
Slurper, slurper, slurper.
Well, no problem. That little phrase before almost always means big problems ahead.
How about that Borax?
You can have my word on it. Did you ever hear that one before?
Nope.
Sometimes
Did you ever hear of the
it seems
broken
like you're
speaker?
talking to Joey Suzu. Look, Town and Country Mortgage and Investment Corporation isn't going to tell you what you want to hear all the time.
Why, you ought to...
There's one thing that you can count on with the folks at Town and Country Mortgage and Investment Corporation.
That they're good
will give
people.
You an honest answer. So if you feel that you've been given the runaround by other mortgage brokers or financial institutions, then give Town and Country a call. 264-2648. They're located at 14502 North Dale Mabry. Town and Country Mortgage and Investment Corporation. Business solution.
It's a hassle. I need to know
They're licensed mortgage brokers. Right before we broke, had a guy call up.
I broke a long time ago, Bob.
Lassiter, this is a silly topic. I got kind of sure in mind because I didn't think it was a silly topic.
Silly.
But you know, he's absolutely right. Insofar as he is concerned, the man is absolutely dead. I guess
out of the battery.
This is an incredibly silly topic.
Recording.
An unbelievably silly topic because you don't give a damn about little phrases like one nation under God. You don't care about pledges of allegiance. You don't care about what the hell's printed on the money or any of this stuff because it's just all meaningless symbolism. You know it's meaningless symbolism. I know it's meaningless symbolism. You know that I know that you know. The problem is you don't like to have it pointed out to you, I suppose. The problem is you don't like to have to confront it. Because that's what pretty much we've become these days are cliches and empty symbols. When people can call up and say things like we heard last week, things like, boy, I wish, some of those protesters, somebody would die in there.
We heard Lassiter said that.
We got too many rights. Sometimes we got too many rights.
Hey, Lassiter. Hey,
all those kind of things that bleeding heart liberals pick on. See, I really move when I see the Pledge of Allegiance being recited by somebody that really wants to recite it. I'm really moved.
I'm really slurping now.
The concepts behind this country.
I like this show. Today was good going. In fact,
tears to my eyes.
You missed a little bit because I had it without the radio.
I would think, foolish lad that I am, I would think for sure.
I mean, just
a lot of people, not all the people, but a lot of people would also be moved, and a lot of people would also care very much about what is said, how it's said. But then I guess that I have a different concept of what America is all about and what living in America is all about. I always thought that America was a place where you had an opportunity to partake in your own self-destiny.
It's gonna get windy now, Bob.
I thought that living in America was part of being in a democracy where you got to choose. I know, republic, all that kind of stuff, but where you got to choose your leaders and how you would be led and
I'm gonna roll up
be proud
here, Bob.
No matter who you were.
How do you like that? I'm gonna rope the other one if I could
You've received fair treatment.
Oh!
But you received equal opportunity. I didn't know that America had to come for most people to be a place of filthy, damned rich where you didn't have to have any social responsibility or share anything with anybody.
You did?
But just keep it all for yourself and to hell with anybody else. I didn't realize that's what it become. I guess I am just such a sucker that I really thought things like phrases meant something. I really thought that what we teach our children to say really meant something. I thought we were more than just teaching them to say it. I thought we were teaching them to live it. Because that's what they did when I went to school. They taught me to live it, not just to say it. It was a very special time of the day.
Yeah, it's about
the Pledge of Allegiance was recited. It was a very special time of the day when civics were taught. As a matter of fact, it was a hell of a lot more important to teach civics than it was to teach marketing. I guess it is a very silly topic, sir. I really sincerely apologize for troubling you with my silly topic. I'm very sorry that...
Sorry, I'm going to be out of
I asked you a question, some of the symbols of your nation. Not a question as to whether or not they were good or bad.
Beginning with that girl. That girl?
I asked you whether or not they still apply. How incredibly silly of me. I mentioned a little bit earlier that it wasn't so important to what you believed, that you knew why you believed it. How incredibly silly of me, sir, to expect you to do something like that.
I'll slurp on your head.
Sir, I'm very comfortable in my beliefs. Because I've thought about them.
Slurp!
They certainly do change from time to time. I have to tell you that because I'm constantly reevaluating them. Constantly trying to determine
I have a blank tape off, but I
can't even makes any sense. You know, to tell you the truth, sometimes the things I believe in, sir, don't make sense. Sometimes I guess I just didn't think about them hard enough. Or sometimes I just accepted what I thought I believed from someone else without fully exploring it myself. So you see, sir, I am not... It's not important to me that you believe what I believe.
It's the first open mic in St. Petersburg!
Exactly what I believe, then I would probably really sit down and re-examine my conscience. And that's not
open mic with Bob Lassiter.
You see, you
has
are
been done
an
in 2
individual
years.
and I am an individual. And if two individuals who come from totally different backgrounds, from totally different perspectives, believe exactly the same thing, and we're talking about abstracts, then there's a possibility that one of us stole from the other. And I would want to make real sure that I hadn't stolen from you. And of course, it would be up to you, sir, to determine whether or not you had stolen from me. And then you could do with that what you wanted to do with it. I don't really care. You may think it's really corny, sir, when I say things like I'm hurt. Yeah, I'm really hurt that you think this is a silly show. That you think these are silly questions. Not hurt professionally. I got calls on the board.
I don't even know if this tape's going.
But I'm just very ran out. A lot of guys like you that think these are silly questions. And these are silly things to think about. But the only thing that you should be thinking about is how to get wealthy, or how to beat your taxes, or how to get laid, or whatever it might be.
What?
All very important things in life. But none of them mean anything if we don't keep this damned country together. And we're not going to keep this country together unless and until we start paying a hell of a lot more attention to it. Hell of a lot more attention to it. And who's running it, and who's
I gotta check
forging the new direction.
I can't check it. It's
if they don't mean anything,
on the highway,
you know,
with the Iowa.